But the most famous, he actually says, "Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon."
What?
So
I would expect like Mother Trucker or something, dude.
No,
Mr.
no.
Falcon.
Mr. Falcon.
That's my code word for calling anyone a mofo now.
Muncher.
In a world filled with war, hate, suffering, and Justin Bieber, two guys fix it all with a battle about a movie. One film, two opinions, one coin, two sides. They feud. You decide. It's time for Film Feud.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Feud, the podcast where we debate whether top-rated movies should be top-rated. I'm Vidur.
And I'm Vikram. Hi, guys.
Hey Vikram, and hey guys. How you doing, Vikram?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Why don't you tell the good folk what we're doing here, Vikram?
For sure. So, guys, we take a movie from the IMDB Top 250. We toss a coin. Heads argues for and tails argues, you guessed it, against.
Ooh, simple enough. Ready to feud today, Vikram?
Let's do it. Click, click, bang, bang, die hard.
That's right. The movie we're feuding today is Die Hard. And just to be clear, it's the original Die Hard. It's not Die Hard like with a vengeance or on a boat or on a wherever the hell the rest of them happen.
How many are there?
Definitely 5. I think the last one was called Live Free or Die Hard. No, I think it was called like 5.0.
2.0.com. That was one of those, right?
The newest one is going to be just called McClane.
Ooh, like Jason Bourne.
Yeah, or like John Rambo, another action movie sequel trope, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a template for these franchises, right?
Yeah, actually that reminds me. I think Fast and Furious 9 should just be called Familia.
Familia or Dom?
Dom.
I don't even know his last name.
No, nobody knows. It's Familia.
Dom Familia?
By the way, before we proceed, I have a confession to make. I don't think I watched Die Hard in its entirety. Ever.
Given the number of episodes we've done here, I'm not surprised because you've confessed that for a lot of movies.
This one, I even surprised myself. Even I was kind of amazed that I haven't watched the entirety of Die Hard. I remember certain things from this movie, but, you know, as a result, thanks to this podcast, I'm excited to finally figure out what all the fuss is about. And maybe agree or disagree, depending on the forthcoming coin toss.
I like how you put that, man. Very diplomatic of you.
Yeah. A little too honest if you ask me.
I'm excited to watch the movie generally also because it's been a long time and probably a reason why this movie's up there.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Good old Brucey Willis. Let's check out what he's all about. So, should we proceed to the coin toss?
Let's do it. Again, I'll be tossing the coin. Heads argues for and tails argues against. And I got heads. I think that's a good thing.
Take it, bro. Take the heads. I mean, there must be a reason I haven't seen the movie in its entirety. No?
I see.
I must have watched chunks of it, and it would have never appealed to me. I would have never been like, hey, let me just go back and figure what it's all about. So, man, I couldn't be happier.
You couldn't be happier?
Yeah.
You would have said the exact same thing if you would have gone heads.
No, I wouldn't have.
Oh.
I would have been like, oh my God, like, why haven't I seen this movie? But here, I'm finally relieved.
Okay. Oh my God, how have I not seen this movie? I'm so excited. Does that work?
No.
All right, man. I'm just stoked because I haven't seen this movie in a while. I remember it being a good movie. Die Hard is literally used as the go-to example for action movies, so it has to be brilliant, man.
Okay, fine. Why don't we go ahead and watch the movie, see what it's all about?
Let's do it. But before we begin our episode, a quick shout out for Hubhopper.
Hubhopper is India's very own podcast app with the largest directory that brings you thousands of unique shows and stories from every imaginable genre.
You can now listen to your favorite podcast, Film Feud, on Hubhopper. That's HUBHOPPER.
So go ahead and download the Hubhopper app from the Play or App Store today. And if you like it, review it and share it with your friends. With that, let's go watch the movie.
Let's go. Click, click, bang, bang, Vidur.
Vikram,
Yes.
what does Die Hard mean?
Oh. I don't know.
What the hell does Die Hard mean?
I don't know, but it fits.
No, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, it's
Because he's hard to kill.
Yeah.
Hard to Kill would be a great title.
It's like, just like pent up like action, like
Stop it. Stop shaking. This is just two words put together for no reason.
I don't even. If this movie was called Ballu Gangster, I wouldn't have given two shits. All right, this movie is so good, dude.
Did Bruce Willis get really old, have a lot of Viagra because he was having troubles with his wife, and then die? And then when he was being buried, somebody was like, these men die hard. Is that what happened? That was my Hans Gruber's henchman accent, by the way.
Oh. So that's what you think German gangsters talk like.
They're not
These
gangsters.
men die hard.
They're not gangsters, firstly.
Terrorists.
They're pretending to be terrorists. What they actually are chomus. From now on, these men will only be referred to as chomus. These men are chomus. There's Hans Gruber and there's his merry band of chomus.
Hans Gruber and the Merry Chomus. I see that.
Yeah, they're useless. That would be a better name for this movie, by the way. Hans Gruber and the Merry Chomus.
Not really, but yeah, I see it.
I have so many things to say, but let's just zoom out for a moment. Just talk about this movie overall.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. Why do people love this movie so much?
What are you talking about?
It's so overrated.
It's the quintessential action movie. It's what action movies are supposed to be. There's so much good about this movie.
It's a goof. The movie is a goof. It's a goofy movie.
How is this a goofy movie? This is the most real action movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Calm down, Vikram. Calm down. Calm down. This is not the best action movie. I know if I say something, you'll make me name them. So I can name one action movie that is significantly better. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. How can you even compare? Right?
Dude, this movie has everything, man. This has real emotions. It's still popcorn, yet it's, oh God, dude, it's the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Calm down. Calm down. Just calm down. Breathe, Vikram. Breathe. Are you okay?
Yeah, dude. I'm okay. I just got a little carried away over there.
Okay. Can you
I'm
at
back,
least
I'm back.
concede you got a little carried away?
I said
Calm
best
down.
movie of all time, I think, in the middle. I think that was way more than I intended to, but best action movie, I'm sticking to that one. You know why I keep saying it's the best action movie according to me? This movie is the go-to template for all action movies, right? It's the lone hero fighting against insurmountable odds.
I think what you're trying to say is that this movie became a metronym, which apparently means that other movies use it as a template to refer to themselves, right? So Speed is Die Hard on a boat. And
Bus.
Oh, sorry. Speed 2 is Die Hard on a boat. Speed is Die Hard on a bus. Which brings me to an excellent point. So many movies did it better. For instance, the director, John McTiernan, had already done it better in his movie Predator, which is why he got to direct this movie. And I like Predator so much more because in Predator is one villain, the Predator, hacking through all these heroes. One hero hacking through all the villains, that's so commonplace and boring.
I think the other way around. I think one villain hacking through a lot, or one alien creature who's just so big and strong that even a team of commandos can't really do much about it. That's more common. This is what started the whole lone person against insurmountable odds.
No, it didn't. No, it did not start. You don't actually believe it started it. Come on, man.
Who started it?
Movie-wise, I mean, First Blood, Rambo.
No.
What do you mean, no? That's what he's doing.
Rambo First Blood, dude, a simple man, an everyday cop against insurmountable
odds. So now you're
odds.
just zooming into now it has to be everyday
Of course, that's what it is. Rambo is just, like Rambo, there are 1 million movies. The action industry up until this point depended on movies like that.
Firstly, it doesn't even matter if this was the first one. We've had this debate a lot of times. I don't care if something was the first, right? It should hold up. This movie doesn't hold up. But if movies in the future did it better, then, those movies should be on there. Predator should be on the list. Under Siege, starring the great Steven Seagal, did it better.
Did it better?
Which was called Die Hard on a Train, I guess. And then Die Hard on a Submarine. Under Siege 2 did it better. You know what? Every Steven Seagal movie did it better.
That's blasphemy, firstly. You haven't even seen Under Siege 2.
I've seen...
You don't even remember Under Siege 2.
I remember Steven Seagal hacking. He's like a chef or something. He's just hacking through people.
And to the
He's doing his Akito, bro. Akito's so much better than this New York cop action style that whatever. Akito. You don't know Akito, bro?
Oh, I don't know Akito, bro.
It's the one where he just moves like a little bit. Like, it's what Steven Seagal does. Everybody knows what Steven Seagal does.
Screw Steven Seagal, dude. You should go rewatch Predator. I actually happened to catch that movie like in the past 6 months. It's pretty weak, dude.
It's good.
It's really bad. Arnold Schwarzenegger is really bad.
Pickle Rick did it better. Do you remember the Rick and Morty episode? That's so much better. There's so many more layers and it tells so much of a better story in just like a 5-minute sequence. That's the thing. Maybe Die Hard attempted this version of like, one lone man against many people in a building to begin with. But then people fine-tuned it, and now we have a better version of it. Why bother with this movie? Why have it on the list?
You're raising stupid-ass points, and you know that. Pickle Rick did it better. One episode from Rick and Morty did it better. That doesn't even make sense. No, it's not. Pickle Rick allows Rick to have the space to do whatever the hell he wants. That's the whole premise of the show. So that doesn't mean he did it better than Die Hard.
And he's a pickle and he dons the costume of a rat and then he goes into a building that's also Japanese.
Can we talk about this movie now, please? We're talking about Die Hard, not Rick and Morty. That's a different show, if I would say altogether.
Okay. Go ahead. What's so great about this movie?
Everything, firstly, and I'll talk about specifics. The best thing about the movie, which I really connected with, was how real it felt. No action movie feels real. No action movie pulls you into it, makes you feel like you're part of a terrorist hostage situation. You just watch it from afar. Even like good, really high budget action movies from today, like Avengers, for example, doesn't do that. Avengers, you're just there, you're seeing it. Robot aa gaya, phat gaya, this thing comes, that thing comes.
Do you really want to bring in Avengers to this argument?
Yeah, let's do it.
No, Die Hard was like it's like basically like an indie action movie for the time. I mean, it was fairly low budget. Avengers represents the best we have to offer in terms of craft of movie making. This is just weak. This is like a loose plot line with decent acting by Alan Rickman is the only thing I'll grant you. Actually, you know what? We'll get to Hans Gruber. But overall, I mean, there's no comparison. It's such a random script.
This wasn't an indie movie, by the way. This was $28 million budget in 88 or 89. That's a lot of money for an action movie.
It feels like an indie movie. It's just confined to one building.
I mean, if you can't convince your head that you're watching a movie in the 80s and give it the respect that it deserves, then you shouldn't even be here, Vidur.
Ooh, oh wow, what a burn. Why don't you focus on the movie and stop trying to ad hominem me?
Whatever, dude. I just want to say that I was sucked into this movie. I was actually alongside Bruce Willis every step of the way, seat of my pants, just watching him being so overwhelmed and angry and annoyed and tense. I felt it. And that hasn't been the case in any action movie that I've seen. I just watch them, shit blows up, people die, and then the movie's over.
What I felt was that this movie was way too long. All the women had haircuts that were way too 80s.
Oh, blame them for having 80s haircuts in the 80s. How dare they? How dare they?
Also, the only reason I was kind of excited to watch this movie is because there's so many characters on sitcoms that swear by it. Like Joey and Chandler on Friends are always like, Die Hard, Die Hard. And then you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, a little bit.
And, you know, Andy Samberg's character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is obsessed with Die Hard. He brings up all these Die Hard references. So I was kind of pumped. I was like, okay, there must be something to it. Turns out this is just a goofball, and it's considered a Christmas movie. What's that about?
You see why it's considered a Christmas movie, because the events of the movie are happening on Christmas Eve, but I don't think it's that much of a Christmas movie. That's a debate I don't even want to be a part of. You know, something about this movie that I actually thought about after the movie ended in terms of why I felt this movie was so good were, you know, the small, inconsequential, almost details that this movie takes care to bring into the script, bring into the story, which all the other action movies just completely forget. You know, small things like when he's on a plane, he's actually nervous about flying. He has a discussion with the guy next to him. The whole rubbing your feet on the carpet, getting more acclimatized to where you are. No other movie focuses on stuff like that. Because if you take away these things, it might as well be Commando or like John Rambo or something that you're watching in it, bruv.
Okay, Governor, calm down firstly. Funny that you bring up Commando, because this movie was actually pitched to Arnold as a sequel to Commando, which, by the way, just imagine Die Hard as Commando 2, and you understand exactly why I think this movie is worthless. Also, this movie was actually made as a sequel to a movie Frank Sinatra was in, so he was supposed to be playing the role of John McClane, which, I mean, what a thought. But coming back to these little things, these, oh my God, little things that you're so in love with. Oh, no director shows little things. It's a pretty standard trope to show little things, by the way. It's called characterization, and they only do it for the first 5-7 minutes of this movie. And I've heard this little point before, okay, that, oh my God, John McClane is scared of flying. That's so cool. That makes him like an everyman. He's like a cop, but he's afraid of flying. So when he actually kicks ass, it's so much cooler. No, it's just like hacky, contrived writing. I mean, so what is afraid of flying? Like, it doesn't even relate to everything that happens in the movie. It's just a characterization trope that they do for far lesser time than many action movies do in the future.
Thank you for that. A few points of rebuttal, if I may.
Please, you may.
Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando 2. The only overlap of the script that Commando 2 was supposed to have was that the events were taking place in a high-rise building, and that's it. Other than that, the script was rewritten and made into a solid separate movie. So it was never Commando 2. The Die Hard movie was never supposed to be Commando 2. It was only the setting of the movie that was common. And Frank Sinatra only got offered the role because when he did that first movie, he had it in his contract to just get first dibs for whenever the second book got turned into a movie. But he was in his 70s when this script was written.
Nope. He was smart. He looked at the script, he looked at the potential, and he realized that it would be a waste.
He saw the script, he saw the stunts required, he pictured himself, then a 70s aged professional singer come actor, chairman of the board sort of a guy, and he's like, yeah, this is not me. I'm just getting this offer because of the contractual obligation. So he said no to it immediately, obviously.
So they went with a star of the show moonlighting, TV actor
crazy,
Bruce Willis, and just turned him into this stupid-ass action hero wearing a wife beater and barefoot. Lame. And also, Bruce Willis was known for his comedy, and so they keep trying to, like, tap into that, which just doesn't work at all. Like, any movie where the hero is just talking to himself and that serves the role of most of the dialogue in comedy, so lame, man. And all of these, like, little real things, these, like, stupid characterizations that you're talking about, they're meant to make the movie feel grounded and realistic, right? But then what's the point of that? The movie just becomes a comic book. It's like this action. It should be in the fantasy genre. It's just like this destruction, lone wolf fantasy. Doesn't matter how much somebody was afraid of flying. If by the end of it, they're jumping out of a building with a fire hose and hanging and going into the window. Which, by the way, Tom Cruise did better in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Just throwing that out there. It's all about fine-tuning. You know, you go in the future and you perfect certain things done in this movie. The fact that people are swearing, there's blood, there's a lot of German terrorists getting blasted in the nuts. I appreciate that.
Real, bro. That's what I mean by real. That's how it's actually going to go down, isn't it?
No, you don't get to, like, insert your real point. I think it
won't be yippee-ki-yay, dude.
Which is how they censor it in, like, TV versions.
Did they say dude?
No, dude. This is so famous because there's a lot of censored versions of this movie, right, in different areas. But the most famous, he actually says, yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
What?
So
I would expect like mother trucker or something, dude.
No,
Mr. Falcon.
Mr. Falcon.
That's my code word for calling anyone a mofo now.
That's a good idea.
Mr. Falcon?
Anyway, I think it's more a commentary on the studio system, like where it was back then, where it is now, right? Until Deadpool revitalized the R-rated genre, R-rated movies were just basically money sinkers because obviously you cut out a huge section of the audience. So that's why I respect the R rating in this movie. Nothing much to do with the movie per se.
To that point, I read an interesting article which spoke about this movie from an audience and from a studio perspective. Do you know the concept of 4-quadrant movies?
No.
So 4-quadrant movies are basically, if you just divide it into 4 quadrants, one's male, females, above 25 and over 25, right? So that's the typical 4-quadrant that studios try to hit with their movies.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this movie wasn't your typical 4-quadrant movie, it still appealed to a lot of people and sort of subverted that segment and actually became more of a commercial mainstream success. And that goes to say a lot about the movie, right? It's your typical high body count, shoot 'em up sort of a movie, but the carefully constructed plot and like just reliance on appearances and stuff like that. And obviously Bruce Willis and Hans Gruber on top of this just made this movie plow through the box office, man.
Are you done with your lecture on film production?
4-quadrant movies.
Okay, can we move on to something less boring? Now that you brought up Hans Gruber, I think it's time we finally talk about him.
Yes.
Firstly, R.I.P. Alan Rickman.
I miss you, man.
I miss you too, Alan Rickman, but only because of your role as the greatest love story protagonist of all time.
Oh.
Starring in the love story of Severus Snape and Lily Potter.
Ah.
Always.
Harry Potter.
After all this time. Always.
He was so good in this movie.
I can't do Rickman, just so we're clear.
That's all right, man.
And neither can you, but I'll give you some credit for that.
I'm gonna do a lot of Rickman in this movie.
By the way, this is not Rickman, right? This is Rickman, who I think was like a classically trained actor or like a theater actor.
This is his feature film debut.
First feature film. So he's doing a caricature of a German accent, basically.
Dude, whatever he did worked, man. That smile, chills.
No, it didn't. His facial hair worked. Only his facial hair worked.
His facial hair, the right side of his beard was a little off.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
There we go. Even that didn't work. Why do people love Hans Gruber? Why is he lauded as a great villain? It's actually a trope for him to be... He literally talks about at some point, benefits of a classical education. Okay, so it's a Bond villain who happened to go to Phillips Exeter Academy. Big deal. That's not a great characterization. And he plays it schlocky, dude. He is camping it up for the most part. It's not realistic at all.
Best action movie villain of all time.
You're embarrassing yourself.
Best. Come on.
At one point, he looks at like the model building. First, he comments on how much he loves models. So precise. Oh my God, a model. And then he looks at the model of like the Nakatomi building or whatever. And he quotes that famous line from Alexander. And when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept because there were no more worlds to conquer. He's saying that looking at a building that he also hasn't really taken control over yet. Calm down, bro. It's a building. There's many buildings. He hasn't conquered jack shit. There's 10 buildings around where he is.
He's so sinister, dude. Didn't you feel that? His smile, every time he's talking, just this Alan Rickman delivery, just typical like, what did you say to me? Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
I'll actually concede when he says yippee-ki-yay, but not for the right reason, because I think in the movie it's supposed to be sinister, but I just found it hilarious. It's Alan Rickman, who's British, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And he's playing this like faux German accent, and then he's imitating Bruce Willis, a New Jersey, New York cop, imitating cowboys. It's just like so many layers, and it just comes out so stupid, and it's like the action climax of the movie. It just made me laugh, so I concede it, but not for the right reason.
I loved it, dude.
He should have been in a Bond movie. This is like the villain of Tomorrow Never Dies. I don't even remember it, but that movie is well suited for this villain. It's too campy. It's too over the top.
Come on, man. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Oh my God, so good.
That's so dumb. Actually, that whole sequence is dumb. Like, why does Bruce Willis let him know?
Yeah, because it's like intimidation tactic, dude. He's going to win the building over. He has his own instinct. Let his instinct kick him and let him do his thing.
Speaking of instincts and kicking in, the chomus in this movie, can we just get back to that?
No,
we have to. I think we have to.
They're German guys, yeah. They're just being told to do by Hans Gruber, and then just they do it and they fail.
So famed, classically educated terrorist / turns out thief puts together this team around him of his German chomus. He handpicks these chomus.
You don't know that. Maybe it's handed to him. Maybe they're old, friends from school.
However they came to be, each of them firstly looks like they should be on the cover of a Mills and Boons novel.
I don't know why we're talking about what they look like or what their accent. It's the 80s, man. All of this was good for the 80s. So they're doing what they're doing basis of their time. You can't blame them for that.
You're making my point for me. Good for the 80s is not good enough. But anyway, so they all have like long hair.
That's an 80s thing.
Okay.
You can't talk about hairdos and costumes and like all of that. That's what the 80s were like. People watching movies right now, people looking at Tony Stark right now, for example, 20 years later, they'll be like, what the hell is he doing? What sort of facial hair is that?
I actually complimented Hans Gruber's facial hair. So clearly that's not what I'm doing here. It's just, they look like they should be, they're like male models, dude. They look like that guy who got hit in the face with a bird on a roller coaster, like that male Mills and Boons novel.
What?
They basically, forget what they look like. They're like stormtroopers in terms of how bad, disposable, and useless they are. They walk into a room where John McClane is. There's like 10 of them, and yet, firstly, they get beaten, of course, because that's a movie. It's like they're looking at John McClane. Either they're just firing randomly into the air, or they're just looking at him like, okay, cool, are you safe? Are you safe? Can I shoot now? And make this into an action scene? And then they shoot. And then when it comes to getting beaten, they're like stormtroopers, like the easiest bloody chomus to beat ever. Useless. You can't have a realistic, exciting movie like this if all of these chomus are as disposable as stormtroopers. You never expect somebody in Star Wars to get hit by a stormtrooper, do you? It's the same thing here.
I actually disagree with you about the fighting, the hand-to-hand fighting. I actually thought it was very well done and very well shot. And it felt, I'm using it again, but it felt very real, right? Whenever McClane's fighting one of these quote-unquote chomus, it actually feels like a real fight. The bullet part, I mean, that's how villains are, man. You find an isolated dude in a room, you have a machine gun, you know he doesn't. What are you going to do? You're not going to tiptoe around. You're going to go in firing. So, yeah, it is what it is.
They're all just dumb, dude. They're just dumb, and they are actually part of the whole problem in this movie, where all the sort of non-Hans Gruber and John McClane roles are so dumb and stupid. They're either stock, like the police captain on the outside, the guy from the Breakfast Club or whatever. Like, he was in a lot of these 80s movies, who's like not listening to McClane. He's making all the wrong decisions. Like, the cops are dumb, the chomus are dumb. So it's so contrived, right? Like, you may just make everybody dumb. And then there's two black supporting actors, Argyle, the limo driver, and I forget the name of the cop, Donut Eater, Powell, or whatever his name is. That's basically blaxploitation, dude. Like, to make two characters who are on the outside have all the over-the-top reactions and just go crazy and, just like have all these animated personas. So 80s, just to exploit black characters like that.
I don't think the cop was animated and over the top at all. I know our guy was because that was his role, but the cop he was normal. Any white guy, any black guy, they would have the same reactions there. Just going back to your point about people messing up and stuff like that, right? I actually thought that added a lot to the movie because, again, it made it so realistic. People mess up in life. In a tense situation like this, people will always mess up. And they didn't hold back in terms of people messing up. The cops messed up. The villain messed up. His chomus messed up. John McClane messed up. That's what's supposed to happen. That's how things will go down in this sort of a situation. It won't be all hunky-dory that, the cops are making every right move. McClane's making every right move. The villain's making every right move. And one of them breaks and the movie ends. It's so perfect.
The cops make every wrong move. They don't not make every right move. It's so schlocky and typical.
And then they show why they make those wrong moves because the senior cop doesn't believe McClane's out there to help. They don't believe he's a cop from New York or anything like that. So it actually it makes sense. Whatever mess ups these guys do, they make sense. You see the run up to the mess up and they mess up and you see why it happened.
Nah, I thought it was all actually pretty contrived. And I don't think John McClane does mess up too much. I think the only part worth mentioning is when he thinks Hans Gruber is one of the hostages. That's the only real mess up he does. And obviously, it's a movie. He comes out of all of it with flying colors.
Talking about that scene, did you wonder why John McClane gives him an unloaded pistol?
I didn't wonder anything. It was just another 80s action movie thing. Oh, he messed up, but turns out he knew. He was right all along.
No, think about it. This movie doesn't have that many holes from a script point of view.
Please, you're embarrassing yourself.
It doesn't have any holes from a story point of view. What are you talking about?
Let's just talk about this scene.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So he essentially gives him an unloaded pistol, right? That's how it ends. Otherwise, the whole situation would have been diffused because he believes that Hans Gruber is an actual hostage, so he gives him a gun to defend himself. But the writer for this movie, Stephen E. D'Souza, he actually came out on the movie's 30th anniversary and he told us, or he told the audience why that scene unfolded the way it did. Basically, they'd cut out this one scene from the movie where all of the terrorists were seen synchronizing their watches and they all had the same watch. And if you listen closely in the dialogues back and forth, they actually mention that about the watch. So when they see the dead body of one terrorist, they say that, oh, these guys are not your run-of-the-mill terrorists. They have slick suits. They have nice watches. So they end up mentioning the watches a couple of times. And when Gruber and McClane meet, McClane offers him a cigarette. And when Gruber takes that cigarette, McClane happens to look at his watch and suddenly realizes that he's a terrorist and not a hostage.
Okay, does the director show this? Is there a look of realization?
Yeah. All of that is there. The only thing that is cut out is the scene where they're seen synchronizing their watches.
That's useless then, isn't it? Like a normal audience member can't actually understand it. You have to go back and listen to this or something. So
yeah, it made me wonder. I actually thought about it. I was like, how did he know? It couldn't have just been a gut, right? So I actually dug up and there is an explanation for it.
Yeah, but it's not in movie. In the movie, it's another one of its many plot holes. But you know what? I will not nitpick. Since we brought up Bruce Willis and Hans Gruber meeting, something that actually doesn't happen much in the movie, so it's almost like they're basically like protagonist and antagonist over the radio, which I found another weak aspect. Can we just talk about Bruce Willis for a bit?
Please.
You know his wife beater changes color in the middle of the movie randomly? It really pissed me off. It starts out white. It just switches to vomit brown randomly in the middle of the movie for no reason.
Dust and sweat. He's going up and down. What do you expect it to be pristine Ujala white the entire time?
Ayana Ujala?
Yeah. You think he's Bruce Ujaloing his Bundy all the time? So it's like, I must not let it get off white or brownish.
It happens randomly, okay? It's a weird editing mistake. Also his wife beater, which is now this look is so iconic. Firstly, wife beater. A controversial name, if there was ever any. I think Louis C.K. has a bit on it. At the start of the movie, he is standing there having an argument with his wife while wearing a wife beater. And I don't know whether it's because we're living in the Me Too era or what, but it made me very uncomfortable.
With his wife, he'd wear whatever he wants, man. It's his wife. What's your problem?
I just thought...
Why are we talking about his Bundy?
His banyan, you mean?
Yeah.
His banyan, his now iconic banyan. The thing is, Bruce Willis was known for his comedic roles, as we said, and I believe the studio even didn't have too much faith in his performance. They paid him a lot of money because it was important for the star of this movie to really carry the movie.
The American dream or whatever. It's a struggling guy. He was a bartender in the middle. He was a truck driver in the middle. Then he came to Los Angeles, did all these auditions, got picked up on Moonlighting, did 3 brilliant seasons, won an Emmy or a Golden Globe or one of those.
Oh my God, he's just amazing. He's amazing. And then in this movie, he has like a sixth sense in this movie. Do you get it? Like a sixth sense. Oh my God, what a story. Oh yeah, he's unbreakable in this movie. Do you get it? Do you get it, bro? Bruce Willis's career is so cool, bro. He's unbreakable. Oh my God, the Nakatomi building, it becomes Sin City. It's like Sin City in this movie, right?
I want to see how long you keep this going. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
He like takes over all these terrorists. He goes the whole 9 yards, man. Expendable, he is not.
Yeah, there has to be more Bruce Willis movies, man.
It's him versus 12 monkeys, 12 shomuns.
It is 12, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
It is 12.
Oh, there we go. बहुत हो गया. तंग आ चुका हूं मैं about your like over-exaggeration of how good this movie is and how good his career. Everything about this movie is not brilliant. Everything is just lame.
You know, one thing that I didn't realize about Bruce Willis was why he's so revered as an action star. The movies, you know, when we were young and growing up, like the Armageddons or whatever the hell that you mentioned, all of those movies, we saw them and they were very run-of-the-mill commercials. So I never really got the world's fascination with Bruce Willis. And then I saw this movie and I got it. Because everyone thinks of Bruce Willis from Die Hard.
Bro, the top floor of this building, it was like Armageddon was happening.
Too late, dude. The train's gone, dude. Let's not get back to that. I realized that everyone loves Bruce Willis, the action star, because of this movie and not because of the other movies that I had in my head. He acts as a perfect surrogate for the audience. His expressions, his acting, his delivery, everything in this movie feels so real. It makes me think along the lines of what would I do if I was in that situation. Except I'm not a trained New York City Police Department cop, so I'd probably just hide or just run away. But at least I'm feeling that. And for me to feel that personally in an action movie is very rare. It doesn't happen that much.
Every action movie is built to feel that. It's fantasy. It's trying to make you relive fantasy. What you would probably do is you would be the guy who gives it all away. You know, who thinks he's like very smart and then ends up screwing
No
over.
shot. I'm not that guy.
You are that guy.
That guy is all cocaine. That's what it is.
It's either that or you would just, you know, take out your own banyan and just bing, bing, bang, bang, click, click, boom, boom, fire, fire.
Oh,
Bruce Willis.
You think so highly of me?
I do. You in a banyan.
Thanks, man.
The superpower is all in the banyan.
You know, he did most of his stunts in this movie. Isn't that pretty cool?
Like what?
Like a comedic actor doing most of his stunts. Do you know one stunt that he didn't do, but went south? Was do you remember that scene in which he's in the ventilation shaft?
Yeah.
And he's trying to like just hang down from his gun using a belt and then trying to catch hold of a vent.
Yeah.
And then he ends up missing that vent. That actually happened. So the stuntman was supposed to go for the first vent and the stuntman actually missed it and then happened to catch hold of the second vent. And it just made for such exciting content that they ended up keeping it in the movie.
Okay, that's interesting, I guess. I mean, I heard something similar about Hans Gruber falling that I thought was actually more fascinating because they used like that green screen to show him falling from the top of the building.
Right.
And I mean, I can only imagine, right? There's probably a green screen at the bottom and they're shooting from top and Hans Gruber actually has to fall, at least to get the initial take in slow motion. And apparently like that mechanism actually just misfired. So he actually fell earlier than he expected to. And that's why the reaction is so real of him falling. They used the first take. And that's why the reaction is like so iconic. So, well, it turns out he doesn't even get credit for that. It was just him actually falling. That was his reaction. He wasn't acting.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's not acting then, is he?
I mean, till this point, I thought he was acting and I was like, wow, what an actor.
Yeah, I know. If I like acted you getting choked out and you were doing a really good job acting that, but turns out you're actually getting choked, that's not great acting, is it? It's just you getting choked.
Just another thing that makes this movie so good. And I think that's very important in terms of understanding why this movie is considered a metronym and why Die Hard is the go-to template for action movies. Every action movie director, every action movie, the studio behind it, the producers, all of them aspire to be a Die Hard. That's what they're shooting for, man. And that's saying something.
I'm so sick of that, dude. You know what it reminds me of? Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard on a boat, whatever. It reminds me of, you know how startups on Angel List will always call themselves the Uber of something.
Isn't that's testimony to how big Uber is, right?
No, it's just testimony to how everybody just searches for a template, right? Everybody is trying to fit something, even though they might be doing something innovative. They're forced to say that it's the Airbnb of this and the Salesforce of that. That's why other people use this as a reference. It's just a template the way startups try to just get themselves funded by calling themselves something that's succeeded in the past. You shouldn't be glorifying that. You should be horrified by that.
No, you're actually taking it the wrong way. It doesn't matter what the startups are trying to do or what they're trying to achieve, whether they're good or bad. But the fact that they're using Uber, or in this case Die Hard, as a point of reference to help people understand what their product is, it's perfect testimony to what the comparative is here. It's the perfect testimony to how big and good Uber is and how big and great Die Hard was.
Did you just say how big and good Uber is? Yeah. That's what you've been reduced to in this feud. You're talking about how big and good Uber is.
Uber good, Uber big, Die Hard awesome. It's as I'm breaking it down as simply as possible.
Oh my God, I can't do it anymore. I just can't.
All right. Why don't we just end it here? I think we've dug deep here.
Okay. I have one very obvious on the nose idea in terms of how we can end it. But you might be called a Mr. Falcon if I do that.
I see what you're doing. Let's not go the yippee-ki-yay route, but let's do a quote by the late, great Alan Rickman.
Okay, we can do Alan Rickman, but I refuse to hear anything else from this movie. I'm done. So if you want to do an Alan Rickman quote, it can't be from this movie.
Goodbye, Mr. Potter.
So that was this week's episode of Film Feud. Thank you for listening.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Now we feuded, and you guys get to decide who you think won this week's feud.
You can vote on Facebook or Instagram at Film Feud Podcast, or find us on Twitter at Film Feud Pod, and make sure you let us know who you think won the feud.
You can also find us on our website, munchermedia.com.
Also, we'd love to hear what other points you might have raised during the feud, and whether there's a movie you'd like us to feud next.
Please don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes.
And you can subscribe to us on Castbox, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, pretty much wherever you get podcasts.
See you guys next week.
Bye.